Right now, there is police activity in the area of Murray and Galley in Colorado Springs. The streets are all blocked off in that area, so you're asked to avoid that area if at all possible. We have heard reports of 2 officers down, and we do have crews in that area trying to get you the latest information. And
there may be some suspects down too, at least one, maybe more. Here's an update we just received from Springs Police. They say they are working a critical incident. All suspects are accounted for initially.
Back to that breaking news, we are following reports of 2 officers down near the area of Galley and Murray in Colorado Springs. We want to go out live to Colleen Sikora, who is there on the corner. And Colleen, heavy police presence there.
He's having to move the truck.
Yeah, Heather, as you can see behind me, dozens of law enforcement vehicles are on scene. We've seen CSPD, El Paso County, as well as a couple of CSP troopers here as well.
You heard from Colleen earlier that CSPD is taking lead on this investigation. Right now, this entire block is covered with law enforcement. We don't know exactly what happened behind this crime scene tape just yet. I talked to a man who has been watching down on a corner for about an hour. He said he saw 3 ambulances drive out of this area when all of it first happened.
Clearly, at this stage, this heightened stage, really not just here in Colorado, but the nation, of violence towards law enforcement, this certainly makes your heart drop just hearing news of this nature. And you can see how Colorado Springs Police are responding in full to that call.
At this point, we are being told that 1 deputy has died and 2 others were injured in the shooting in East Colorado Springs. Those 2 others being officers. That's in addition to any suspects that may have been injured or killed. We have no information on that.
We can tell you that we expect new information to come out around 6 o'clock tonight. We're expecting Sheriff Bill Elder with the El Paso County Sheriff's Office and also Chief Pete Carey to give a press conference here at 6 o'clock to give us additional information on this. But as of right now, let's go live to Casey Kirshner, who has been there at Memorial Central Hospital to bring us any new information. Casey, what can you tell us? What do you see there from your vantage point?
Actually, for the first few minutes, we saw a lot of ambulances coming in, zooming past the hospital and into the emergency area.
Okay, we're going to go to Crystal Story back at the scene. Crystal, you've had a chance to kind of roam around and talk to some of the folks that live in the complex there. What have you learned?
It has grown somber here. A lot of the people who stood at this perimeter earlier this afternoon have now left and gone home, but we've talked to a couple people.
And we are awaiting a press conference there at Memorial Hospital from El Paso County Sheriff Bill Elder.
All right, looks like they're going to start talking at the news conference at Memorial Central. Let's listen in right now. It's Jackie Kirby from the El Paso County Sheriff's Office.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming.
It is with profound sadness that I say that this afternoon, Deputy Micah Flick, 34 years old, was shot in the line of duty and has died.
There we just heard
confirm what we feared all afternoon. In fact, it's even a little bit worse than what we thought in terms of the total number of law enforcement officers injured.
34-year-old Deputy Micah Flick was shot and killed this afternoon. He is survived by his wife and 7-year-old twins. Today was his 11th anniversary with the Sheriff's Office. He was hired February 5th, 2007. According to Sheriff Bill Elder, quote, "He is an outstanding member of my agency and he will be missed."
You're watching KRDO News Channel 13, where the news comes first. Your news starts right now.
We would encourage everybody to keep Deputy Flick's family in their thoughts and prayers, as well as the other people who were injured tonight. Definitely a sad day for our community, and we will get through it together.
For the 3rd time in 37 days, a deputy in Colorado has been killed in the line of duty. This time, the tragedy hitting on our own home turf. Good evening, I'm Heather Skold.
And I'm Bart Bedsole. Thanks for making us your choice for local news at 10 o'clock. We have team coverage tonight on the shooting this afternoon that claimed the life of an El Paso County deputy, the latest deputy killed in a senseless act of violence. We begin with a closer look at what we know about the deadly confrontation today. It happened inside the Murray Hills Apartments near Galley and Murray in southeast Colorado Springs.
I heard the shot, then I come on out here.
Video broadcasted live on Facebook by a neighbor at the apartment complex.
You try and bring him back to life.
Shows a frantic scene. Paramedics desperately trying to save 3 people on the ground with critical injuries. Much of the video too graphic to share. The officers and deputies were part of an auto theft task force, a group made up of multiple agencies that specializes in stolen vehicles. And when they confronted their suspect today, disaster.
They were investigating a motor vehicle theft. They encountered an adult male suspect. A struggle ensued, and shots were fired.
When it was over, the suspect was dead at the scene. The others were all rushed to Memorial Central Hospital. In all, 6 people were shot. The suspect, a civilian hit by a stray bullet, a Colorado Springs police officer, and 3 El Paso County deputies, including Detective Micah Flick. The announcement coming from Sheriff Bill Elder just after 6 p.m.
It is with profound sadness that I say that this afternoon, Deputy Micah Flick, 34 years old, was shot in the line of duty and has died.
Tonight, there is no distinction between our uniforms, State Patrol, Sheriff's Office, and the Colorado Springs Police Department. Our hearts are all broken.
And tonight, we pause to remember the man who died serving and protecting this community, Deputy Micah Flick. It was 11 years ago today, Deputy Flick started his service with the El Paso County Sheriff's Office.
11 years serving. 11 years making our community a safer place. This day started like any other, ending like no one imagined.
Good evening, everybody. It is with profound sadness that I say that this afternoon, Deputy Micah Flick, 34 years old, was shot in the line of duty and has died.
Micah Flick, 34 years old. The detective worked his way through the ranks, starting at the Criminal Justice Center and Patrol.
Very, very well liked, very, very well respected.
Deputy Flick was an outstanding member of my agency, and he will be missed.
Deputy Flick is survived by his wife and twins, 7 years old. A grief never as deep as this.
And we have learned tonight that Deputy Flick was a 2002 graduate of Colorado Springs Christian Schools.
As you saw earlier, it was a chaotic scene at Galley and Murray in the minutes after the shooting at the Murray Hill Apartments. News Channel 13's Colleen Sikora has been on the scene all day. She is live once again tonight. Colleen?
Bart and Heather, crime tape is still up here on scene as law enforcement continue their investigation into what happened here. This is the most quiet that we've seen the scene all day, but earlier, chaos. A deputy calling frantically.
21 Murray Hill Apartments. We got an officer down, at least one officer down.
Law enforcement rushing to the scene.
We need multiple ambulances.
Mary Flo Horan heard it all.
A little close for comfort.
She lives in the Murray Hill Apartments and was putting on her shoes to leave when shots rang out.
It was less than a minute, probably like only 30 seconds. I heard like a pop, and then there was a slight pause, and then I heard like a pop, 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 and then there was another pause, and I heard probably 1 or 2 more gunshots, and then it was over.
When she got outside, she ran into a man who she believes was the suspect.
I saw the guy come around the corner. He was limping really badly and holding in his hip, and he went inside my building.
All we have right now, suspect is in number 105. I don't have any further at this point.
Horan says she's seen him before and he lives at the complex. But it's this scene leaving Deputy Micah Flick dead, 2 deputies and 1 CSPD officer injured.
If I had not taken those 2 minutes to put on a different pair of socks and put on different shoes, I would have been outside when it happened.
And this witness reeling. Now, one lane of Murray just opened a little over an hour ago. As you can see, both CSPD and El Paso County Sheriff's Office still have mobile command centers on scene. Officers here say that they expect to be on scene for hours and into tomorrow morning. Live in Colorado Springs, Colleen Sikora, KRDO News Channel 13.
And maybe beyond that, Colleen, thanks. In addition to the suspect, the police officer, and the 3 county deputies shot, we told you about the civilian who was caught in the crossfire. And tonight we have learned his name is Thomas Villanueva. We spoke with his roommates who said Villanueva was on his way back from a restaurant when he was shot through the chest. The shootout happened in the parking lot right in front of his apartment. Villanueva was taken to Memorial Hospital and survived, but we currently don't know his exact condition.
And all afternoon, our cameras were kept at a distance from the scene, but when people who live at the Murray Hill apartments were allowed to return home, we got a closer look at the crime scene and some exclusive video and interviews from witnesses. KRDO News Channel 13's Crystal Story continues our team coverage tonight.
Heather, the sights and sounds that witnesses saw at this crime scene earlier today will not be easily forgotten. We talked to one man who literally hid under a stairwell while shots were fired.
He went down right before me, maybe 20 foot out in front of me.
When he heard the shots, he hid in his apartment, scared for his life.
Very, very exhilarating, I could say the least. My heart rate was going 100 miles an hour.
This video shot from a balcony just feet from where the shooting happened.
Walking by the stairs, and there's like a wing window you can look out as you walk by. As I was approaching the window, I heard a couple pops, rapid fire, like 2 or 3 shots. And as I turned to the window and looked out, I saw a bunch of people scattering and moving in on one guy.
For those who saw and heard the whole thing, falling asleep won't be easy. Now, the man who led us on his balcony actually came home just after 4:30 to find his entire apartment complex closed off. He had to wait 2 hours until just after 6 when that parking lot was reopened. In Colorado Springs, Crystal Story, KRDO News Channel 13.
Crystal, thanks. Just after the incident, the injured deputies and injured officer were taken to Memorial Central Hospital in Colorado Springs. That is also where a procession began to transport the remains of Deputy Flick to the coroner's office. KRDO News Channel 13's Casey Kirshner has been there all night. She joins us with the latest. Casey.
The last we heard, the Colorado Springs officer who was injured was in surgery here at the hospital but was in stable condition. We also reached out to the El Paso County Sheriff's Office and the hospital here to try to get the conditions of the other deputies that were injured, but we haven't heard back yet tonight. But I will say the community is already rallying behind the law enforcement in our area.
Following the shooting, first responders jumped into action, bringing the injured here to Memorial Central. The emergency area was closed at the hospital for a time, but after a while, the frantic moments turning into somber faces. The officers and deputies here learning that one of their own had passed and others were hurt.
We would encourage everybody to keep Deputy Flick's family in their thoughts and prayers, as well as the other people who were injured tonight.
To honor the fallen deputy, a procession from the hospital to the coroner's office.
This is one way that we honor our own. And we would encourage you to participate as we honor the life of this fallen deputy.
Hundreds lining the streets, all to remember a hero taken too soon.
A very, very sharp, put together guy, very, very well liked, very, very well respected. It is a loss for our agency. It is a loss for our community.
With the community rallying around our law enforcement, showing their support in this tragic time.
This is our way of giving back to them and saying thank you for not only your service, but for paying the ultimate sacrifice.
Casey, thank you. And people at the tail end of that procession also came out in force. KRDO News Channel 13's Chase Golightly was there and spoke to those paying their respects.
The flag was set to half staff outside the El Paso County Corrections Center. The sheriff's deputies, police officers, and dozens of those in the community came together to say goodbye to Deputy Micah Flick.
I think it's just a sad loss for the community. It's just a sad loss for the community.
Law enforcement leaning on each other, embracing in the face of grief. People bringing flags to show support. Dozens waited for the long motorcade to bring the fallen deputy. After driving from the hospital where Flick was pronounced dead, people stood in silence, watching as the cars and motorcycles drove by. Then when the hearse carrying Flick arrived, tears were shed and a final salute was given. Those who attended the procession say their thoughts and prayers are with family, friends of Deputy Flick. Others saying it's comforting to see the community come together to support our law enforcement during a deadly year.
Everybody hates everything all the time lately, and it's good to show this much love. You know, you don't see a whole lot of it.
Many praying that the other deputies injured in the shooting will be okay.
But I'm so proud of him. I'm so proud of a man so worthy of honor.
A solemn day in southern Colorado as family, friends, and law enforcement honor Deputy Micah Flick. Thousands gathered to pay their respects to the fallen hero as a procession made its way from New Life Church to his final resting place. We begin our team coverage tonight with a look inside New Life Church this afternoon. His funeral was as honorable as the way Deputy Micah Flick lived his life. More than 100 blue-tipped flowers were placed in 2 vases, each from a different law enforcement agency represented today.
He loved his job, and everyone will tell you that he excelled in every job he held.
The governor said of his 70 funerals as an elected leader, he can't think of one sadder than today's.
Sometimes I wonder if God takes the best among us to remind us to live our lives to the fullest.
You raise me up so I can stand on mountains.
The service was a chance to honor and to remember Deputy Micah Flick, but more than anything, to learn about his life outside of law enforcement, how he was able to balance his life as a deputy with his faith and, most importantly, his family. His wife, Rachel, talked about the daily challenge of watching him leave for work.
And I would say to him not infrequently, babe, don't be a hero. Do your job and do it well, but don't be a hero. But here's the problem. Here's the problem with Micah is that he was a hero. He is a hero, and he couldn't help it. He couldn't help it.
But Rachel Flick didn't just speak as a grieving widow. Showing the same strength as her fallen husband, she talked about the larger problem of how much of society views police today.
And I want to say to you that it's not confusing why Micah died, because we have a cultural epidemic of a lack of respect for law enforcement and authority.
His heart was more pure than any other man I ever met.
He's a hero not for how he died, but for how he lived.
X-ray 26, Detective Micah Flick. Thank you for your bravery and years of service. You will not be forgotten. End of watch.
At the funeral, we also learned a little bit more about Deputy Flick's final moments on Monday afternoon. Both his wife and Sheriff Bill Elder talked about his final act of service, not just taking a bullet in the line of duty, but physically putting himself in between his killer and his fellow deputies, something they believe at least saved the life of Deputy Scott Stone and maybe others as well. Now, the issue of respecting law enforcement was not addressed just by Rachel Flick today, but many others at the funeral, from the governor to local authorities. News Channel 13's Chase Golightly caught up with many who attended today. He is live in the studio with what they said during this difficult time. Chase.
Bart, since the beginning of the year, we've had 3 deputies, all in different counties, killed in the line of duty. The latest being Deputy Micah Flick. But we can't forget Deputy Zachary Parrish and Deputy Heath Gum. Many people at the funeral tonight saying enough is enough.
Led by officers mounted on horseback on a cold, snowy afternoon, hundreds stood outside and watched as the body of Deputy Micah Flick was brought to the front of New Life Church.
This is a good kid, and he was a great cop. And so there's a lot of people that are here to honor him.
Thousands mourning the death of a deputy just doing his job to protect his community. Governor John Hickenlooper was one of those people. He says the violence against law enforcement has gone too far.
Clearly, we've got a serious problem. I mean, it's a big issue.
Moved by Rachel Flick's speech, he says the problem stems from a lack of appreciation.
Well, I think it's a respect for authority, she said as well, and I think that's really where it starts.
And it's the 3rd one in 40 days. It's tough. And they're all sheriff's deputies, which is crazy.
El Paso County Sheriff Bill Elder agrees. These deadly shootings against our men in blue need to stop.
You know, the just senseless violence in this world is, we've got to find a way to stop.
Police from all corners of the state gathered for the funeral of their fallen brother. A sergeant with the Douglas County Sheriff's Office, who lost a deputy this year, says hearing of another tragedy like this is heartbreaking.
Part of it was disbelief, some was anger, a lot of sadness. It was the feeling of enough's enough.
After the ceremony, everyone watched as those who knew Flick carried his casket outside. While Deputy Flick is laid to rest, Sheriff Elder says the support should not end here.
Just remember that it doesn't end today. We need to stand behind these families and these officers for a long time.
Cars lined up behind the hearse carrying Flick to follow him one last time.
Just to give you an idea of how many people were there, the hearse had already left the church grounds for about 20 minutes. Police cruisers were still in the parking lot waiting to follow. Live in the studio, Chase Golightly, KRDO News Channel 13.
Chase, thanks. After today's service, law enforcement officers and other emergency responders took part in that large procession from New Life Church to Woodman and Meridian in Falcon. We flew our News Channel 13 drone over the procession. These are the images from the sky of the incredible show of support from law enforcement and the community as people lined the route of that procession to pay their respects to this fallen hero. From above, you can see the hearse pass under the large American flag that bridged the highway. It was escorted by flashing lights from hundreds of emergency vehicles. News Channel 13's Casey Kirshner talked with some of those along the route today.
Thousands of people posted along the procession route, armed with flags, salutes, bowed heads, people leaning on each other, all the way down the 13-mile stretch.
Unfortunately, it's a bad situation that we're out here with, but you know, one way or another, we have to show our support in every which way we can.
It's just something that is very simple for to come and do when they're putting so much of their life on the line.
A massive flag flown by fire crews, a show of love and support from another branch of emergency response.
This is so important for the family to give a hero's send-off, and we just feel very strongly about that to support our brothers and sisters.
Everyone braving the cold and snow to make sure Deputy Micah Flick's family and the Sheriff's Office know just how much this loss is felt.
These guys come out here every day, and inclement weather doesn't matter to them. They're out here, and it shouldn't be a big deal for us to be out here as well, just to show our support.
It's really sad to know that the people that are protecting us are having their lives taken.
With Coloradans out for the third time in just 5 weeks.
It's way too close to home, and this has been happening too much.
But through it all, this community sending a clear message. Deputy Flick will be remembered for the hero he was.
Thank you. Thank you for your sacrifice. Thank you for your commitment.
And he will never be forgotten. In Falcon, Casey Kirshner, KRDO News Channel 13.